All right, so we're here for a spring kickoff meeting. I think Danica's got the first set of slides, so I'll let her get us started. Oh, but you're muted.
Yes, will help if I unmute myself. Yeah, if you would like to go to the next slide, we just have a quick agenda for today, an overview of the gardens and some updates. We'll talk about the website updates, some new garden signs, the Moodle, which is another exciting resource. And then we'll also discuss a little bit about spring planting and leave some time for questions at the end, I hope. And we also have a few slides that we'll share if we don't have time to get to them that have additional resources on them for the ozone garden stuff. So next slide. Oh yeah, so I just wanted to also highlight that we have tentative schedules for our growing season meetings for 2021. So if you wanted to make note of these dates, these are the current plans. They are subject to change, but we're going to have another meeting in mid-May on May 12th, a meeting June 28th, a meeting on August 11th, and a meeting on September 13th. And all of these meetings are scheduled for, currently scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Mountain time. I'm in Mountain time, Erica's in Eastern time. So that's why we include those. If for some reason you or you know of people who want to join that these times are that like normal regular time of day does not work, you know, we can be somewhat flexible in the time. So just please let us know. But the first meeting in May is going to walk through how to identify plant damage. The meeting in June, we'll talk a little bit more about ozone pollution and how we know, how we measure ozone and what ozone pollution is and why it's problematic. The meeting in August we'll go over some garden activities that different gardens have done each year, and we'll do a damage share fair so we can all check out damage, and we'll try and do some of these share fairs and garden activities and other meetings as well, but the August meeting will be devoted to that because that's the time when, if you're going to see ozone damage in your garden, you probably will start to see it by August. And then the last meeting will be in September, talking about how to winterize your garden. So that's the lineup for this this growing season, I guess, in terms of meetings. I'm gonna go to the next. Yeah. Oh, I put this map in because the map on our website wasn't working, but Ryan, fortunately for us, just got the map on the website working. And so it looks a little different than this map. I actually think the website map is easier to see where all the different gardens exist, but these are the gardens in the US part of our network. We do have a few gardens in Europe as well. And I want to highlight, first of all, that it's exciting to have such a big network of gardens because I think that it allows us to share resources and to share activities across garden locations. And so we can all learn a lot from each other. Everybody is coming to the garden network from a different type of institution with different needs. And so what we provide is not necessarily going to fit for each garden. And so we're always excited to hear from other gardens with new ideas for what types of activities worked at your garden as well. We do manage some of that in the Moodle, and we're hoping to hear from all of you later this growing season about the different types of activities that you found worked well for you. The one other thing that I will say is probably not all the gardens are listed here. This is a lot of these sites are actually from our original network, and given that our website just started last year, if you did not, and last year was also a COVID year, so a lot of these gardens weren't up and running, and we are fully aware of that. But if you have not yet registered your garden on our website, it would be great if you can do so that your garden, first of all, shows up on our map, and second of all, is linked to a person. And so on the side of the website, there's this Ozone Garden quick links, and I've highlighted this Garden Manager login. And what this does is it brings up a pop-up box, and it has login information, but at the very bottom of that, there's a link to register your garden. And so that's what you'll want to do. And I think it requires the location so that we can, or the address of the garden so that we can have figure out a latitude and longitude for your garden to mark the correct point. And I also think it has an email address. But part of the reason why we ask for you to also have an account and to log in is if you are collecting data at your garden, it helps us to have one person at each garden collect data on the visible ozone damage, which we'll talk about in the future. But if you are collecting those data and you can do that through time, then we know that we have a consistent baseline to compare all the different citizen science data to at your particular garden. And so that just helps us to verify some of the data and the differences based on different people's perceptions of ozone damage. And so that's why that is useful for us.
Just to clarify, anybody can submit their data. We're asking for one person who your team thinks will be looking at the gardens regularly to become the garden manager, so that we know kind of what one person's consistent measurements look like across the season. And then anybody else, they actually won't need an account to sign in and can contribute their data.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Erica. That is indeed correct. Yeah, so last year we launched a mobile-friendly website, and we are working to update it this year. But this website was designed to a partnership. Ryan has really done a lot of the work on the back end, as he said, and Erica has helped a lot, and a few of our other Ozone Garden partners to design this website. And it's mobile friendly, but it also works on your laptop. So you can go to this website. The link is in the bottom right corner. And the website has an overview page, which has a lot of information. That's actually what is pictured here on the right. But it has a lot of information about what is ozone pollution, why does it matter, what can we do about it. There's a training page that takes you through a little module to help you identify ozone damage and also think about the differences from other types of damage. There's an image gallery so that you can look at photos of ozone damage and other types of damage for the different types of plants that we have in our gardens. And then there's also the data collection page. You see at the top of the overview page that will take you to the data collection page as well. So we have links throughout to help point you in that direction. And then we have data visualization. You can see our some of the folks were testing this out in our NCAR garden last year. And so this just plots the damage. And as you see the colors, well, we're updating this color scheme actually, but the colors that are red, purple, and brown are sort of more severe damage, and you start to see them more frequently as you get later on into the growing season. And so this pops up for every garden that's registered where people are collecting data. This will compile the data and show you in a graph form what the data look like. And so this is just for our coneflower from last year, and you can see, these brown lines in September show that most of the plants, probably like 80% of the plants, 70 to 80% are showing a damage score that is brown. So it's 75 to 100% of the leaves that were assessed are damaged. And so that's what this color is indicating. We had a bad fire season here in the West, if you remember. And so a lot of fire emissions that then caused high ozone concentrations throughout the year, or throughout the late summer and fall. And so you can really start to see evidence of that from this graph. Yeah, so we're also updating the website. Another cohort of computer science seniors that are working on updating the website for us as part of their senior science practicum. So one of the things that we'll be doing is updating the garden location map so that it's a little more seamless. We're going to add a new base map, and also what we're hoping to do is add a photo of your garden so that when anybody clicks on the garden location, it pops up and it says the name of your garden. But we would also love to have a little image of the garden so that if they're looking at your garden, they know that they're at the right garden. So if you have those photos, please send those to Erica or myself. We have a few from some of the gardens, but it would be great if you have a good just garden overview picture so that people know that they're in the right place. I think that sometimes having that visual helps. We are also hoping to add slightly easier data entry for the mobile side of this, and also for the computer side of this. You can you can enter data both through the mobile app, or you can enter data by collecting data in worksheets that you can print off. There's a link on the website, and then enter the data here. And so we're making that capability also easier on the website. You can see the injury identification here at the bottom, and these are just leaves. And so you scroll through until you see the image or the percentage that looks closest to the damage that occurs on, or the damage that is occurring on your leaf. So hopefully it's pretty straightforward to enter those data. And then last, we are adding ozone concentration data. So this is going to default to the nearest EPA sensor, whatever sensor is nearest to your garden. Some of your gardens might be pretty far away from the local EPA sensor, so keep in mind. And also let us know if you have an ozone sensor at your garden that is reading data that we can access for the website. Please let us know, because we would love to connect to your ozone sensor if you do have one. Also, I guess the last thing I'll say on this is, if you're looking at the website, please keep in mind that this is, I'm hoping that this is the first season that people are really using this website. And so if you happen to see anything that is confusing or missing, please let us know. We're willing to make some updates to the website, although we do have slightly limited capacity in this realm, but we would love to be able to incorporate your feedback on design.
And I just want to make one more note about the data entry that Danica was mentioning. Like she said, we want to make it easier to access on a phone or a tablet so that any visitors, all citizen science have access, but we also recognize that many of you are having school groups or coordinated programs at your sites, and that's the point of having the web-based access as well. So if paper sheets is easier for collecting data in large groups, that can still be done and added later. So we want to make this as easily accessible for whatever type of audience you might have. So as Danica says, if something's missing that we can't support one of the audiences you're engaging, let us know, and we'll try to work that in varying lengths of time to get that going, but we'll do our best that we can. And it's my turn. Speaking of supporting visitors, we are so excited. I am thrilled. It's taking me longer than I would have hoped, but we have new signs. I am working on getting them output right now, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks I will be able to send them to all of you. We have both vertical and horizontal options available, so whatever type of signs you might have in your current gardens, hopefully these will fit in. We have some short sets and long sets, meaning that if you've got a small garden and really want to get to the point, we've got a set of 2 signs that really cover most of the information a visitor would need to understand the gardens. But if you've got a little more room or a little larger budget to print signs, we've got some of that extended information that many of you mentioned wanting to have. So impacts on plant and human health, what you can do to mitigate your impacts on ozone, all sorts of things like that. And we'll have guides on how to print these. So I know we've got a whole spectrum of the types of gardens out there. So some with big sign budgets and some with pretty much none. We're putting together materials on how you can print it at maybe your local print shop and still have a pretty good sign in your garden. And we've got some connections to smaller print shops that are really affordable. We want to make this as accessible as possible. So I will hopefully be sending that out in the next couple of weeks with downloadable. There's also an opportunity, we've left a space on all these signs for you to add your own logo. We know most gardens, you want to include your information there. So these will be editable for you to do that as well. So we're very excited. We've got a QR code on the signs, all the garden collection signs. So you can encourage your visitors to jump straight to the data collection and add to our citizen science project. Oh, and I see a question. Let's see. Not yet, Nicolasa. I do hope to get them translated at some point. Right now, they are available in English. I'm looking to find some funding to get them translated. I can probably, if anybody has access to translators, we can work together. I have the abilities to edit these documents, so we can certainly work together to figure out how to get them in as many languages as possible. And I'm hoping to find some funding. All right. So then there's the Moodle, our online community. So as we started talking today, we've got a great community of folks out here and it's continuing to grow. And I really want to encourage everybody to participate in the Moodle. It's got a number of forums to discuss issues and best practices. There's a whole set of years, differing years of expertise out there. And I want us to take advantage of each other in that way. There's also space to ask questions and share photos about identifying ozone. So if you're not sure, this is a great place to post a photo, and the community can help provide feedback on that. All of the downloadable resources will be here, so they'll all be in one place. Also, all of the past webinars and slide sets are available on this space. One thing I think in the past, mostly and mainly at the same time there, I think it's mostly been garden managers that have participated in our Moodle, but I want to encourage folks to have any volunteers or staff, interns, anybody that might be facilitating activities are welcome to join this community. I think the more the merrier here. So if you don't already have access, you can email me. If there's one person that wants to send a list of names and email addresses to me at erica.wright@cfa.harvard.edu, that would be fantastic. Let's see another question. Where to go? Oh.
So Erica, the question is from Susanna, and Susanna says, we have a relationship with CUNY's Queens College for translating English to Mandarin and developing relationship now for Spanish. The Mandarin is for free. They also have a relationship with an organization who could translate to Braille for free. And so she lists her email address so that we can be in touch. Thank you so much, Susanna. That's very useful resources.
I will be sure to be in touch. I think that would be amazing. Like I said, the more people we can have reading these, the better. And I will have the original document, so I will be able to put in the translated if you don't have Adobe and the Adobe suite to make them pretty again. So great team effort there. So I was also going to put in the chat, there's the link there. I'll send a follow-up email with all of the links that you'll need. I know this has been quite a few, so those will all come in a follow-up email with the recording. Speaking of resources, so we'll have, if you don't already have them, that Moodle has everything, including a garden setup guide, a volunteer guide that's got some great background information, the garden signs, the old versions as well as the new will be in there shortly. Some plant ID signs that look kind of like these ones on the right so that you can place those in the gardens in front of each individual plant. A couple activities guides. We're hoping to have more activity guides. If anybody here has an activity they love doing in their gardens and wants to share, we're happy to put it there. You can either send it to me and I can upload it, or we can work together to get it on there. But there's a lot of great resources. There's also other resources developed by other groups and organizations that we've enjoyed using in our gardens that include everything from children's books to some pretty easily attainable activities, models about surface ozone, parts per billion. Great resources. This list is also on that Moodle, and of course we'll be sharing these slide sets so you can have the list that way as well. All right, and I'll pass the baton back to Danica to talk about garden planning.
Yeah, so spring is near. At least here in Boulder, it's almost 60 degrees today. We are supposed to get potentially up to 5 feet of snow in the next week, though. So it is variable weather, but it's time for probably many of you to start thinking about planting your gardens and at least planting them. And so as far as garden planning goes, I just wanted to highlight a few things. You know, if you're doing this, if you're planting for the first time, a few things that are good to know. And before I start that, one of the things that I want to say is, and we'll come back to acquiring seeds and getting seeds, but I want to highlight that the cultivars and the seeds that we're providing are from known bioindicators. And so we know that they are biological indicators. There is, even within a given species, there's enough genetic variability in these plants that sometimes they're not known or sometimes they're not bioindicators. And so if you're welcome to acquire seeds external to the project to plant in your gardens if you like, but just keep in mind that they might not actually be bioindicators, the seeds that you get from other sources. And so we can come back to that if that's confusing and if you have questions about that. But getting the seeds from us, we're sending seeds that we know the parents of those seeds have shown visible types of or visible damage on their plants. So when you're thinking about your gardens for the year, keep in mind that both coneflower and milkweed are perennial plants. They will overwinter, they grow back every year. These are the two of the plants that keep growing back year after year in my garden at NCAR, and I imagine several other gardens. They do spread through rhizomes, which are underground stems. And so they can actually kind of take over. So you do have to be on top of it if you're planting these in the ground. But for these two particular plants, we don't necessarily have sensitive and resistant cultivars of the same species. And so if you wanted to show ozone tolerance versus sensitivity, you could get, for example, a different species of milkweed and a different species of the cut coneflower, but it's not quite comparing the same plants. So just keep that in mind. As far as the snap beans and potatoes go, they are annuals. They do need to be replanted every year, and we do have sensitive and resistant cultivars available. The one thing that I will say, particularly for the snap beans, is that when you're growing both the sensitive and the resistant cultivars, any of the seeds or the seed pods that are grown on any of the snap bean plants are going to be unknown sensitivity. And so we actually encourage you to use the sensitive and resistant seeds that we have each year rather than harvesting those seeds. The potatoes, I think, are a little bit easier. You can dig up the roots, which are the actual potatoes, and replant each year, and those should have known sensitivity. Other things to consider when thinking about setting up your garden is the type of garden that you're going to have and the amount of space. So is this a garden that's going directly into the ground, into raised beds, or into containers? So those are things that you'll want to consider when thinking about planting these different types of plants. You also want to think about water availability, especially in places where it can be dry and you can get drought stress. One of the reasons why this is important is because ozone enters the leaf through the plants. We call them stomata, and they're basically the pores on the bottom surfaces of the plants. But when it is dry and the plants are under drought stress, they close their stomata to preserve water. And so they're also not going to be taking up the ozone that's in the air. So drought stress and ozone stress are both bad for the plant, but if you have drought stress, you're also not see the ozone damage or the ozone stress. And so if the point of at least I see the point of the gardens as illustrating that ozone can cause damage on the leaves of plants. And so you want your garden to be well watered so that the garden is functioning as expected. A few other things to consider is fencing. If you are in a place with herbivores, whether it's deer or rabbits, or anything like that, or if your gardens will get damaged. I know we had a garden at the University of Colorado Boulder, and the gardens were getting vandalized there, and they've actually decided not to continue planting them because they were having so much trouble with vandalism. So just keep that in mind. It could be helpful to have fencing around your garden. And then also thinking about soil and nutrients. Of course, the plants are going to grow best in soil that has enough nutrients, but nutrient availability can also change the sensitivity of the plant to ozone damage and developing that ozone damage. We recommend, if you can, not using chemical fertilizer. It's better to use something like a compost if you want to add nutrients to your soil. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. For growing gardens this spring, so these are the plant types. Erica, are we gonna have also the tobacco if folks want it, and or other plant types? I only put the 4 on here.
So I don't currently have someone to grow the tobacco.
Okay.
We do have seed.
Okay.
It has been indicated to me that growing from seed is very difficult with the tobacco. Not impossible. So if somebody has a green thumb and is a good grower, I'm happy to get you the tobacco. But it is difficult.
Okay. Yeah. And so
and we had a question in the chat box that came directly to me. So I think this is the good time to address it. Asking about how far apart sensitive and resistant seeds of the same kind should be planted. So maybe as you go through, you can discuss just.
Yeah, so that's a great question. As far as planting them, they don't have to be planted far apart in order to be able to see the differences in sensitivity. The main reason that you might want to plant them somewhat far apart is so that people can, when you have visitors to the garden, so that they can see if cultivar is a sensitive cultivar or a resistant cultivar based on your signage. If you mix those, it might be harder to tell. And so then people will be looking at both types of plants together. So I would say that that's the main reason. That if you have pollinators in your garden, it's not going to matter how far apart you're planting them for their offspring to, for the pollinators to be interbreeding for the seed development, especially for the snap beans. The potatoes, we don't collect the seed. We usually collect the potatoes from the ground. And so it's not as much of an issue for them as it is for the snap beans. But if you are hoping to maintain your sensitive potato line, you might want to consider planting the two different sensitive and resistant potatoes far enough apart that when you're digging up the cultivar or when you're digging up the potatoes each year, what those, which types of plants those came from. And I'm happy to answer more questions on that if you're planting and you have more questions. Okay, so yeah, please just keep asking questions if you have them. But the coneflower and the milkweed, though, as I said before, they're perennials and they should regrow each year. And so for new gardens, you want to plant the seeds outdoors as early as possible. And for both of these, and especially for the milkweed, the seeds actually require freezing. And so if you can't plant them before the last frost, you may need to stick them in a freezer. This is called vernalization.
Am I the only person, or did everybody lose Danica there for a second?
We did. We lost her.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll give her a second to come back. I think she's got sometimes some poor internet. So we'll let her come back in a second to hopefully she can reconnect. While we give her a second to hopefully reconnect, does anybody have any interim questions?
I do. If folks are interested in getting some of these plant starts, should they email you, Erica or Danica?
Yes. So actually, I think while we wait, you should email me. You can also fill out this survey here, surveymonkey.com/r03garden 2021, where there's an opportunity to provide some feedback about the gardens, what you need. And I will send this in the follow-up email as well. Tell us what plants you're going to be growing and if you need help accessing any of these plants for this coming year. That would be a great place to fill that out. But you can also email me directly if you have questions. Yes, 1 second. There you go. That is now in the chat. And I'll follow up. It also has asks for an address. I'm realizing now I didn't ask for a separate shipping address. So if your garden address is not where you want things shipped to, send me an email with where you'd like things shipped to so I can get them to you directly. We'd like to keep the garden address in there so that we can make sure our files are updated on the website. And Danica is back, so I can go back one slide in case I think there were a few more things you wanted to say. We lost you there.
Yeah, sorry, our internet just crashed. This happens from time to time.
Not a problem. We kept going. Got
Yeah,
you
I
to share.
figured as much. Yeah, I guess I think when my internet crashed, I was just saying potatoes should be planted 2 to 3 weeks before the last frost, and snap beans should be planted in the spring after the last frost. Snap beans don't transfer well if you plant them inside to outside. They don't like that, so you should just sow them directly into the ground. And then at the bottom of this slide, which Erica will send after this meeting, there are links for links to websites that can help you think about planting for your region, and we'll give you more detailed information. So that was all. Sounds like you already went through seeds, Erica.
We were going through if you need access to these plants, let us know. The other question is, the other comment I should say is, if you've got extra rhizomes that you're willing to share, or another known plant, let us know. I know some folks have shared in the past. Virginia Living Museum has had in the past shared out some of their rhizomes of their milkweed and coneflower. Depending on the year and what you have growing, I know that's not available to every garden every year, but we'd love to know so that we can make things available to as many gardens as possible. All right, so other questions, and maybe I will stop sharing now and we can get back to seeing everybody's faces. There are other growing questions, garden questions, any of the above? Feel free to unmute yourself.
I have a question, because I am very new to. I am not a gardener, but I'm trying to learn. Are we already too late to plant, say, potatoes, or are we going to get more frost, or what?
I don't think it's too late to plant potatoes. They usually 2 to 3 weeks before the last frost is a good time, but I think that you can plant them in the spring. They should still grow.
Yeah.
So my question is, when is the last frost?
Right, so you'll need to look that up online for your location, because it's going to vary throughout the US. So I know here in Boulder, it's the end of May. Usually it's like around Memorial Day weekend is usually when they say it is, but that it's not going to be the same as somewhere like Texas or Montana, for example. It's you're going to end up planting later. Oh yes, Emmy just put a link into the chat with the plant hardiness zones. So that's a great resource. Thank you, Emmy.
I'll say in New Hampshire, I've planted them way too late and still had results. So the potatoes will grow they don't go as big, they don't grow as well, but you can still get some plant out of the potato even if you grow them a little later. There we go. Anne's planted them as late as early April, so you've got some time. And so if you need the plants, be sure to fill out that form as soon as possible, and I will get on mailing what we have. We might be limited on potato this year. Snap beans and potatoes as well. We will be providing snap beans and potatoes, and we can provide both sensitive and tolerant. Can we provide tolerant potatoes this year, Danica?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think almost any potato besides the chipper that we're sending out will be tolerant. So you could actually get any sort of seed potato as a tolerant potato. And yeah, that's it. So I don't know, I don't have any myself, but we could just go to the garden center and buy potatoes.
Yeah.
If we wanted to.
Yes. So if you're gonna have if you have no idea what to go with, let us know and we can see what we can do there. Absolutely, we can provide the tolerant snap beans. Those I will send together with the sensitive snap beans.
Yeah. I have both of those.
But the potato, I don't think we have a ton for everybody this year, unless anybody else has a stockpile. Some of our potato growers have minimized over the past years. We're working on it again. So we won't be able to grow a lot of potato plants, but we should be able to send everybody a couple.
I guess the other thing to say is that if anybody wants to grow potatoes for us so that we can then send them out to the garden, please let us know. I think both Erica and I are very limited in space in terms of what we can actually grow to provide seeds. So we're always looking for partners who are willing to propagate these for us.
And Susanna has another question or a comment.
Well, I was just going to respond to that because I was already thinking about this, that we as a botanical garden, and we have, of course, you know, our polyhouse and high tunnel and greenhouse. So it may be a larger conversation to find out what the logistics are. Since this is my first time learning about the program, we'd probably just want to know so I could connect with our horticulturist and farmer.
Absolutely. Danica and I are happy to meet with anybody offline as well. If you need a little bit more detailed information, particularly if you're interested in diving in at some point, not immediately, into deeper help with cultivating some of the plants that we need.
I was also going to say that if you are interested in having these emails sent to you as well, please send Erica and I an email so that we can add your email address to this list. And also, we have a link on our website that might be a little bit hard to find, but it's basically just a Google form so that we can, if anybody is interested in planting a new garden, you're welcome to email either Erica or I directly, but you can also fill out the Google form link that I just put into the chat. And yeah, sorry, I just tried to label that because I forgot to add that content. But you can, if you that form, it also gives us, it sends us your email address and some of the information, and that way we can get you more information on starting an ozone garden. So those are two options for if you're interested in starting a new ozone garden, to contact us.
All right, we're approaching the hour and I want to respect people's times. Do we have any last minute questions? All right, well, thank you everybody for being here with us today. I will be sure to send out the recording, all of the links we mentioned, the slide sets to all of you in a follow-up email once I get the recording processed. And please don't be afraid to send me a follow-up email with a question. Danica and I are here to support getting everybody started with another growing season, and we're excited. Oh, and one other thing. We mentioned the 4 webinars that we'll be planning, but Danica, along with a member of the Tempo Science team, will also be doing a webinar for educators in June. I think the date's not yet set, but we'll be sure to send out that link as well. It should be a fun experience, as well as a learning experience, a little bit more about gardens and a little bit more about air quality. All right, well, thank you all so much
for your interest.